Hello guys, Yami Yusaku here, and today we're going to be talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS episode 22 and 23 summaries. Unfortunately, the 23 summary is only going to be like one of those 1 or 2 sentence like little teaser trailer type of things, but the episode 22 one gives us a lot of really interesting information, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Episode 22 is going to be titled The Pitch Black Sun. Yusaku and company investigate a mysterious phenomenon known as Another, in quotes, where the victims can't log out of Link VRAINS and stay unconscious in the real world. They successfully identify who the next victim might be using the data they collected. In order to prevent more damage, Yusaku and company decide to take action. The cast is going to be Yusaku, AI, Kusanagi, Naoki, Go, Emma, Revolver, Dr. Kogami, Dr. Genome, who's a new name, Faust, who is also a new name, Vira, who is also a new name, then Kitamura, MC, and Kimajima Makoto, who I believe is also a new name. So, with all that being said, we got a lot to discuss there in and of itself, but the episode 23 summary actually provides a little bit of headway for what my current theories, at least, on what episode 22 might be about in its description. So, episode 23 is going to be titled Genome's Giant, and it says, as he fights against Dr. Genome, Go Onizuka has no choice but to duel as a heel, doing whatever it takes to win. Now, essentially, the way this is reading across to me is it sounds like this Dr. Genome guy is who turns out to be our real villain, at least for this arc. Now, the question at this point really becomes to me is this sort of like a mini arc that derails from the primary story, or is it connected to all the ongoing investigation into Yusaku's backstory and whatnot? I can kind of see it playing out both ways. Maybe Genome just sort of interrupts and kind of intervenes with everything, sort of like a mini Noah arc from Duelist Kingdom, which I know a lot of people probably wouldn't be a fan of, but as long as it's well written, I guess I don't mind it too much. The hopefully reality type of situation we're in right now is that it's actually going to be tied into the plot, and this new Dr. Genome guy is going to have a lot to do with what's going on. And despite the fact that Genome doesn't have a specific gender attached to it, we can probably assume it's going to be a male character, given how the voice actor associated with said character is going to be a 50-year-old guy. So, with all that being said, if it does indeed tie into the central plot, really what I'm seeing play out here is Yusaku goes and talks with Revolver, as we pretty much were left off in episode 20 thinking he's going to do in episode 21. They kind of sort out somewhat what's going on between the two of them. There's probably going to be some arguing. They probably still won't see fully eye to eye, similar to how Yugi and Kaiba used to often find themselves working together, even if both of their final endgames were different. Their paths sort of crossed on where they were heading, if that makes any sense. Think of it like two roads that intersect in the middle and then keep going in opposite directions. I think that's sort of what we might be getting at here. Of course, it's also possible to end up fighting for the exact same side, the way Yusei and Jack often did in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Either way, basically what I'm thinking here is Revolver manages to explain something else, and I'm wondering if the state that Kogami, who is Revolver's father, is in is this phenomenon known as Another, described in the episode 22 summary. Given how we've seen him hooked up to this machine, we've only seen him appear in VRAINS, we know that he was proclaimed dead 3 years after the Hanoi incident had stopped, and that could very well be this whole quote-unquote Another incident, because, I mean, if somebody's unconscious in their bed and never seen in public, that could very well be taken as dead if they're totally unconscious, and at the same time they're never seen, so putting those all together could be seen as dead. And it also really makes me wonder if that is the case, that he's in the state of being quote-unquote Another, if Soul Technologies is tied to this Dr. Genome and they had Kogami put into that state by Genome for some reason along those lines. And then they're sort of in the position of, if Kogami's dead to the public eye and they for some reason wanted to investigate this whole Hanoi incident and Soul Technologies actually was behind it, which I still pretty much stand by that theory. I don't take it that Kogami's entirely evil in what he's doing. But continuing from there, if their plan was to basically set him up, he's dead, he was the main one behind the incident, there's not a lot of investigation left to be going on, and then suddenly they're left with a clean slate to the public eye because there's not a lot of anyone you can question, given how their own data bank pins everything on him. So then this Dr. Genome character, for all we know, might have actually been the one behind all of it. We'll have to wait and see. He could be sort of like a Rex Godwin type of a figure, where he was behind things, even though it seemed like Rutger was the villain, at least in his own right, and being the leader, from what we could tell, of the Darksigners during the Darksigners arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. But continuing with that, if that is indeed the case, and that's the story Revolver presents to Yusaku, this could be the turning point we see. Given how there's no description of a duel between these 3 episodes, I doubt if there's any kind of an argument between them that it intensifies much at all, and I have a feeling this really is possibly where they come to an agreement, given how Revolver is listed on the cast list here, so is Kogami, and there's no sign of like a conflict between them whatsoever, and it says Yusaku and company decide to take action. Given the fact that Aoi and Akira are not in this episode at all, and basically that would just leave Kusanagi in terms of Yusaku's usual posse, it makes me really begin to wonder if Revolver's who they're throwing in as his company, and he's going to take action alongside Yusaku here. Given how the word company here, I have a feeling they would have just said Yusaku and Kusanagi decide to take action if it is, just he and Kusanagi here, as opposed to being a larger group that could include, say, Revolver. Now, the other name that we have on this cast list is going to be Emma, so she could definitely be in there as well. Maybe she sells the information. Maybe she starts to uncover some stuff for us as well, because one thing we have to keep in mind is Emma seems to be a very curious person, so maybe she's going to be showing up in this episode to gradually piece bits of information together for us. When you're in her line of work, it's not entirely strange by any means to have a number of connections who kind of know these dark secrets and companies and stuff that they hold as their own power manipulation tools. Given how she's a bit of an information person herself, she could probably make some swaps, find out some information for us. It's also possible this could be the episode where Emma takes a distinct side with Yusaku. Maybe she's investigating what's going on with him and Revolver, figures out what's going on, and then tags along in this Yusaku and company tagline. The other question becomes who's going to be the new victim based on what we have in this description. Now, based on what we have in episode 23's 1 or 2 sentence summary, I have a feeling it's probably Go, and it sounds to me like somehow Genome is manipulating Go, because what we've got in that summary is basically that Go has no choice but to duel as a heel. That would imply that he's kind of being stepped on and forced to do something that might be against his will, doing whatever it takes to win, which definitely doesn't sound like his play style. That sounds to me like he's having to get very aggressive, possibly even violent. So I'm wondering if Genome's maybe blackmailing him in some way. We gotta remember that Go is heavily attached to that orphanage, and something tells me that if Genome's able to threaten the kids in that orphanage, Go will basically do as he chooses. Heck, that could be another theory. Maybe Genome, if he was indeed behind Hanoi incident, seems to have an affiliation with targeting children. Yusaku was really young at the time, and those children we saw cheering Go on are rather young at their age. Maybe they're his next target for victims. Go finds out about this, tries to intervene, and then basically what happens is Genome manages to turn that against him, and now he's puppeteering Go, who's a very powerful duelist within the Varane space. Maybe this is when we see he and Yusaku have a rematch, and Go feels like he's basically backed into a corner, or maybe he's dueling some other people. It's going to be hard for us to make much of a judgment call there until we have a cast list for the episode, and even then I don't think we can necessarily predict it. Moving on from there, going back to the episode 22 summary, we also have an appearance by Naoki, so you could definitely make a case that maybe for some reason he's going to be the victim, though I feel like Go is the more likely candidate, given how he's someone who is very powerful. So if you're a villain trying to make a statement, or trying to have some kind of a puppet work for you, or something like that, Go is well known, versus Naoki, if you went to the average citizen and mentioned his name, I don't think anyone would necessarily recognize it. Go is the WWE's all-star of Link Varane space, so... And that kind of brings us to, I guess, the final point of this, and that's who are Faust, Vira, and Kimajima. All of these characters are totally new names. I'm wondering if they're maybe starting to name some of the chess pieces, and we see them kind of in person, and indeed the chess piece things were just suits of theirs that they used to communicate through to people with, so that way their identities weren't revealed, and we see them talking to Genome or something along those lines, if it is indeed Soul Technologies who's fully evil, which, like I said, I do subscribe to that theory. or maybe they're just colleagues of Genome's, or maybe they're just new characters entirely, or perhaps they were other victims of the Hanoi incident that Yusaku went through that he runs into, or in a flashback thanks to Revolver, or something along those lines. There are almost infinite possibilities for who these characters could be. It's going to be interesting to watch it unfold, and the fact that they are named here implies that they're probably going to have some sort of relevance in the show. Is it going to be super heavy? I kind of doubt it, and in some ways I kind of hope not, because I feel like we've already got a pretty decent sized cast. I feel like we could use for a couple of villains, if anything, if they're going to show up. Kind of like sort of underling types of villains, kind of on the scale of like Raphael from the Waking the Dragons arc in Duel Monsters, where he was a relatively well-developed character, but wasn't like part of the main cast in a lot of ways at the same time, or like one of the Darksigners maybe. Or they could also just be of the same kind of level of relevance as Naoki, where they kind of just serve to, present a public viewpoint or present the viewpoint of one of our factions or something like that, and aren't seen doing a whole lot of the time. And this basically brings me to my final point, which is if we do find out that Dr. Kogami is in this another state, that would also sort of explain why he's so after destroying Link Vrains, because it makes me wonder if his theory is by destroying Vrains, anybody who's stuck within this state where they're basically unconscious outside of Vrains, if by destroying Vrains, maybe it forces you to wake up. It's certainly a possibility. Maybe they're going to find flaws in the theory. Maybe they're going to explore it. I don't know, but I think it serves as more potential evidence towards the theory that Kogami's in that state and actually isn't injured. Thankfully, we do have the episode coming out tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to find out some more information from there. Anyway, that about wraps up my thoughts on this episode, guys. Be sure to let me know all of your thoughts and theories in the comments section down below. Do you think that Kogami's actually evil, or do you think it's this Genome guy? Are they working together? What's going on with all of that? Who are these new names? Is Go the one who's going to be the intended victim, and is that going to be how they tie him back into the story? Personally, I think that'd be a good way to bring him back into everything. Is this just a side story arc, or is this connected to the overall theme, and are Yusaku and Revolver going to end up working together? If you enjoyed this video, also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and as always, have an excellent day.